Hey everyone, it's Dave from Dave's Ohio Barbecue. I love hamburgers. I love a good burger, whether it's on the grill, whether it's in a frying pan, smash burger, any kind of burger. But the problem is, I really don't like eating burgers without a hamburger bun, and I've been trying to cut carbs. So today I'm going to give you the ultimate low-carb hamburger bun recipe. Stick around. So one of the first thing you need to do is get a couple bowls, all right? I have two separate bowls here that I'm going to be using. First thing I want to do is I want to get 3 eggs, but a little twist to this, to get a little bit of rise to my buns here, I'm not going to put the 3 eggs in straight. I'm going to put 1 egg in the bowl, so here's that, okay? And then I'm going to add the 2 other yolks to that bowl and separate the whites, okay? So I'm gonna have 2 yolks in there, and in another bowl over here is where I'm gonna put the whites. And here, let me actually scoop this over so you can see here. There we go. So in one bowl, I'm gonna try my best here to get the whites separated. Ooh, it's kind of going. All right, you got a little bit of yolk there. I'm gonna have to fish that out. And then in this other bowl here, same thing. I'm trying to separate the whites. You can separate the whites with the eggshell. You can separate it with your hand. I'm gonna fish out some of this yolk here. I really don't care if there's a little bit of yolk in there, but fish out kind of the bulk of it. Okay. So now that I've got those in there, I'm gonna put these egg whites aside. I'm gonna end up whipping those later to kind of add a little bit of fluff and a little bit of height to my hamburger bun. So the next thing you need to add to this egg mixture is you need to get some sort of fat in there. You can use coconut oil, you can use lard, you can use butter. Butter always tastes good. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna measure out some butter, and you wanna melt it, but you don't want it to be ripping hot, because if you take ripping hot butter and put it into your eggs and mix it all up, you're gonna end up with basically scrambled eggs, and that's really gonna taste disgusting in a bun. So if you do melt your butter, make sure it has time to stay liquid form, but not be really hot. For this, you're gonna need 50 grams of butter or 2 ounces. And since everyone knows a stick of butter, I don't know if you guys can see this or not, is 4 ounces, then just cut it in half and you should be good. And I'm just gonna cut this up into some smaller chunks, put it in a microwave safe bowl, and I am going to slowly zap it, probably like in 15-second increments, just so I get it to the point where it is nice and melted. All right, while that butter is melting in the microwave, I'm going to, scramble up or whip up these eggs here, these egg yolks and the 1 egg white, just to kind of get it smooth. And then I'm going to take the butter, which I know is melted but not super hot. I'm going to slowly drizzle it in as I'm adding the butter, just to make sure it keeps moving. Okay, again, if your butter's too hot, you're going to scramble eggs, and that is not what you want. All right, got all that good butter in there. Looks good. Okay. This recipe is not going to have any wheat flour in it, no white flour, nothing like that. That's where a lot of the carbs come from in bread products. Most of the carbs come from. So instead, we're going to use almond flour for this. For this, I'm going to be weighing it out. I'm going to be using my food scale, which you can see the bowls on right here. I'm going to reset this to 0. And then I need 75 grams of almond flour in here. And I'm just going to kind of sprinkle it on top and watch the weight here, because I want to get to 75 grams. $75 grams. Wow, that was harder than I thought it was going to be. Another thing that can add carbs to bread products is baking powder. Baking powder does have about 1.5 grams of carbs per teaspoon. So I'm just going to use 1 teaspoon of baking powder in here. The recipes I originally looked at called for a lot more than that, but instead of relying on the baking powder to get that lift in the bun that I want, I'm also going to whip those egg whites I set aside. I'm going to whip those into soft peaks, and I'm going to fold that into this batter, and that's going to give me a little bit more lift in my buns. So 1 teaspoon of baking powder, Add that in, just kind of sprinkle it on top there. I'm just gonna make sure it's in there. I like to kind of just sprinkle it around just to get it kind of spread out. Cool. All right, now we can mix all this together so everything's moistened. I'm gonna put the egg whites onto my KitchenAid with the whisk attachment and just kind of let that run until it gets whipped up to some nice soft peaks. If you don't have a KitchenAid, you can use one of those hand mixers. You can use a good old-fashioned whisk. Whatever it is you got will work. You just wanna whip them up until they're kind of like, not quite to meringue state, but sort of looking like whipped cream. All right, so while all that's mixing, make sure you heat your oven up to 350 degrees, okay? We're gonna bake them for about 15 to 20 minutes, depending on your oven. Just keep an eye on them. When they look like they're puffed up and they look like they have, you know, a little bit of browning on the top, they should be good. To bake these today, you can use a lot of things. You can put them in a muffin tin, but then unless you have a big muffin tin, you're gonna have little tiny buns. You can buy either an English muffin pan, or I got these. These are English muffin rings. I bought them off of Amazon. I'll put a link to similar ones. I couldn't find the actual one because I bought these a while ago. But I bought these rings, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these rings on a silicone mat on a baking sheet. You can just use a regular baking sheet. It doesn't necessarily need to have a silicone mat on it. And this is what I'm going to use to form the size of my buns. Looks pretty good, pretty bun size. Okay, so I've got my mixture here. I've got my egg whites. I'm going to kind of gently just kind of drag those in there. Get as much of it as you can. And then you want to incorporate it into this almond flour batter, but you really don't want to mix it crazily because you're going to deflate the eggs. So what you really want to do is just kind of gently fold it in there. I'm using a rubber spatula, trying to keep those eggs, you know, inflated until you can't see any white streaks. Okay, and you can see it's deflating a little bit, but I'm not too worried about that. All right, and you can see the batter is also loosened up considerably by adding those egg whites in. All right, so this recipe is going to make 4 buns that are, you know, about 3/4 of an inch thick. If you want bigger buns, you can probably push it to 3. But here's a picture. I tried making 2 buns out of this amount of batter my first go around, and you can see they grew right outside of the English muffin tin thing. So I'm gonna go with 4. The more muffins you make out of it, the lower the carb count will be. In the entire batter, there's 8 carbs, 8 grams of carbs in the entire batter. You divide that up into 4, you know, pretty decent. You're looking at two carbs per muffin. Plus there is some dietary fiber. I entered the numbers for this recipe into one of those websites that calculates nutritional value, and it says that there are 3.8 grams of dietary fiber. So if you're subtracting the dietary fiber from the carbohydrates, you know, it's actually really nice low carb. One of the other things I want to do with these tins, since I'm going to make 4 of them here, just so they don't stick, I'm going to take a little grease of some sort and go around the inside of the English muffin tin. I'm just going to use the bowl that I melted the butter in before, and I'm just going to wipe up some of this butter onto a paper towel. And then just real quick, take each form and just kind of give it a loop. If they do stick, or if you don't really want to do this step, it's not a big deal, because you can just take a paring knife and just kind of run it along the inside, you know, after they're done, and pop them out that way. But I'm going to try to make this as easy as I possibly can here. So divide this up amongst 4 English muffin tins here. We got number 1, and I'm just going to put, I'm not weighing this out, I'm just going to put a little in, go on to the next one, put a little in, go on to the next one, put a little in, and then go over here. And I can always scoop some out if I need to. But again, I'm not looking for dead on measurements here. Just kind of eyeballing it. This one looks like it needs some more. So does this one. I'm getting all this because if I can get 4 buns out of it, why not? All right, and then I just want to kind of, you know, move the batter. I'm not going to call it dough. Move the batter around, get it kind of spread out so that they can rise a little easier. And there you go. But I'm kind of going for, you know, man-sized buns here, which strangely enough was my stripper name back in college. That's a joke, kids. I didn't strip in college. It was high school. Into the oven they go for 15 to 20 minutes. The first time I made these, those big giant ones, it actually took more like 23 to get the nice brownness on top. But I'm thinking since these are a little thinner, 20 should be fine. But check your oven, 15 to 20. I know a lot of these low-carb bread recipes are really kind of eggy. And this one does have a slight egg flavor to it, but not half as bad, or not even close to any of the other ones I've tried. A lot of the other ones taste like you're eating an omelet. This one has a slight little bit of a like almond egg flavor to it. Now, if you want to, you can kind of mask that. If you want to put some garlic powder in your bread or some onion powder, if you want to put a little bit of salt in there just to give it a little bit more of a savory flavor, that's great. They freeze really, really well. So once they're done and they come out of the English muffin tin, put them on a cooling rack, let them cool completely, and then just put them in a Ziploc bag or something and chuck them in the freezer. I've had them last in there for months. They also toast pretty well. Cut them in half. You can toast them and eat them for breakfast, whatever you want. You can see here as I cut one of these in half, it's got a really nice like crumb, really nice air bubbles in it, so it is kind of soft and fluffy. Really good for a burger. I know I like them for burgers because I don't like eating a hamburger on a plate plain. It's boring to me. So at least this gives me the feeling that I'm sort of eating a burger, which is good enough for me. As always, thanks for watching. Make sure that you subscribe to my channel. Press the little button down there and then press the bell next to it. That way, every time I have new videos coming out, you will get a notification. Also, follow me on social media. I am on Twitter and Instagram at Dave's Ohio Barbecue. I also have a Facebook page. Just search Dave's Ohio Barbecue on Facebook and you should be able to find that. I got a lot of videos coming out really soon. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.